Raymond Cadillac Smith, September 27, 1982, USP Marion, Illinois. Raymond Lee Cadillac Smith was the national leader of a powerful black prison gang known as the DC Blacks. Inside the federal system, his name carried weight. His enemies knew it, the guards knew it. And in Marion's control unit, everyone understood something else. If Cadillac died, it would ignite a war. Smith had been transferred into Marion while Thomas Silverstein, an Aryan Brotherhood leader, was facing trial for the murder of a DC Blacks member. According to later accounts and Silverstein's own testimony, Smith arrived with one goal: kill Silverstein before Silverstein could be convicted. Smith didn't hide his intentions. He bragged openly that he would kill Silverstein. He attempted to attack him with a shank and even smuggled in a zip gun. The hatred was mutual, the threat was real, and prison staff kept them in the same unit. Silverstein later claimed, "Everyone knew what was going on, and no one did anything to keep us apart. The guards wanted one of us to kill the other." Then came the moment. On September 27th, Silverstein and fellow Aryan Brotherhood member Clayton Fountain cut their way out of an exercise cage using a hacksaw blade. They found Smith in the shower area. What happened next was not a single strike or a quick hit. It was a storm of stabbing. Smith was attacked with homemade knives fashioned from bed frames and towel racks and stabbed 67 times. And even that wasn't enough. After Smith was already dead, Silverstein and Fountain dragged his body up and down the hallway in front of other prisoners' cells, turning the killing into a public display meant to humiliate, intimidate, and provoke. This wasn't just murder, it was messaging. Guards found Smith stabbed to death inside Marion, and the news hit like a shockwave, because everyone knew what would follow. The killing escalated the Aryan Brotherhood DC Blacks race war inside the federal system, and became one of the defining murders tied to the violence that made USP Marion infamous. Just 3 weeks later, on October 22, 1982, Thomas Silverstein would kill again, this time stabbing corrections officer Merle Klutz to death, an act that would place Silverstein in solitary confinement for the rest of his life, eventually becoming the longest-held prisoner in isolation in U.S. history. Raymond Cadillac Smith didn't die in the streets. He died inside the most controlled prison unit in America, killed in a hit so excessive it wasn't about winning a fight, it was about erasing a boss, and making sure the whole prison watched it happen. Mexican Mafia leader Rodolfo Cheyenne Cadena, December 17, 1972. Chino, California, the reception center known as Palm Hall. Rodolfo Cadena, better known as Cheyenne, had become a legend inside the Southern aligned prison world, respected, feared, and deeply involved in the war between La M, or the Mexican Mafia, and their northern rivals, Nuestra Familia. But Cadena had committed an unforgivable act in the eyes of other Mexican Mafia leaders. He had tried to make peace. For months, Cadena believed the gang war was destroying both organizations. He reached out to Nuestra Familia leadership and proposed unity, La M and NF working together instead of slaughtering each other in California's prison yards. But other senior La M leaders wanted no part of it. Just before Cadena's scheduled peace conference, another Mexican Mafia leader ordered the murder of 2 high-ranking Nuestra Familia leaders. The message was clear: there would be no peace. And Cadena, the peacemaker, had been undermined by his own gang. With no remaining influence in the Mexican Mafia and his mission destroyed, Cadena's importance to Nuestra Familia vanished. He became a target. The night before December 17th, Cadena received repeated death threats. By morning, he understood the truth. If he left his cell with the rest of the prisoners, he would be attacked. Guards asked if he wanted to stay locked down. He left anyway. As soon as he stepped onto the tier in Palm Hall, the hit team moved. Nuestra Familia assassins rushed him with homemade weapons, shanks, and the attack became a frenzy. He was stabbed repeatedly, then battered with a pipe as the assault continued. It didn't end with the first takedown. Cadena was stabbed an estimated 50 times on the tier, then thrown off a third-story tier onto the concrete below, where the stabbing continued for another dozen blows. In prison, that wasn't just murder, that was a message. A public execution designed to humiliate, to terrify, and to prove something far worse than power: total reach. And his own gang had set it up. Cadena's death didn't end the conflict, it detonated it. His killing became a spark for a vicious new phase of prison warfare. Over the next year, 31 prisoners died in a cycle of murders that spread through California's penitentiaries. Rodolfo Cheyenne Cadena didn't die in the streets. He didn't die in a shootout. He died where reputations are supposed to protect you most, inside the system, betrayed by his own leadership for daring to pursue peace. Idemir Sombra Carlos Ambrosio, beaten to death by his own gang, July 2001. Casa de Custodia y Tratamento de Taubaté, São Paulo, Brazil. Inside one of Brazil's most violent maximum security prisons, known as Piranhal, Idemir Carlos Ambrosio, better known as Sombra, was a senior leader of Primeiro Comando da Capital, the PCC, one of Brazil's most powerful prison gangs. an organization born behind bars in this very facility in 1993, sustained through violence, extortion, and absolute internal discipline. For years, Sombra had survived prison by reputation alone. He issued orders, settled disputes, and enforced loyalty through threats and beatings carried out by others. But by mid-2001, that protection was cracking. Just 5 months earlier, in February 2001, Sombra had become the PCC's most vocal and visible leader. From inside Piranhão, using a smuggled cell phone, he coordinated simultaneous rebellions in 29 São Paulo prisons involving 27,000 inmates. The PCC could no longer be ignored or denied by the state. Sombra was powerful, charismatic, called Pai, father, by some prisoners. But inside the PCC, power was shifting. According to investigations, Sombra had committed serious violations of the gang's internal code. He allowed prisoners and their families to be extorted by other inmates. He ordered rebellions on Sundays when women and children were visiting the prison yards. And the unforgivable sin, he authorized the declaration of enemies in front of visitors, an act that broke the PCC's own principles of conduct. The punishment was decided internally. The order came from other PCC founders. On the morning of July 27, 2001, between 7:30 and 8:30 a.m., during the outdoor exercise period at Piranhão, Sombra was surrounded. What followed was not a quick execution. 6 PCC members attacked him. He was beaten repeatedly with iron bars, punched, kicked, and stomped. The assault continued long after he was no longer able to defend himself. When they were finished, they strangled him with a shoelace. His body was found on the ground, a rope around his neck, severe head injuries covering his skull. The 6 men were arrested. They initially claimed it was just a personal dispute. But investigators learned the truth. It was an internal execution, a power struggle, a purge ordered by the PCC's remaining founders to reassert control and eliminate a leader who had broken their rules. The death sparked a crisis within the PCC. Leaders made mutual accusations. The internal fracture was real. Idemir Sombra Ambrosio did not die fighting the state. He was not assassinated by rivals. He was not rescued or transferred. He was surrounded, beaten, and struck by his own gang, inside the prison where the PCC was born. He was buried with a PCC flag draped over his coffin, an honor even in death.